Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We are on again with Adam Halpern, who was on episode 152 talking about Wave on Health, but we are doing a few follow-up episodes to get into more depth onto the business side, the founder CEO, and just other aspects of creating your own company or job or whatever it may be within athletic training. So today we're going to be focused on being a founder CEO and really diving into that. And so first, I'm going to turn over to you, Adam. Just if you could give, again, a little bit of background on your experiences as being founder, CEO, and then we'll kind of dive into more of the details that go into being that person.
Yeah, no, Joel, great to have me back. Great to join it again. I appreciate it. I think the first thing that is really important, and it's not about titles, but it's more about the clarity behind what the title actually means.
Sure.
There is a major difference between founder and then CEO. And I'm speaking to the audience when I talk about this, how I've defined the word founder, and it's been through years and years of tribulations, turmoil, successes, failures, conversations, being part of other groups with other people like myself. The term founder really means someone that found the problem and is creating the solution. And that's a very unique perspective. It's a very unique, I'll say, skill set to kind of look outside of the norm, look outside of the traditional environment, look outside the boundaries, and literally create a solution that doesn't exist. A CEO really understands financials, understands how to manage people, understands how to scale a company. A founder is building a company from the ground up, and then a CEO is taking it to the next level. So what I've really been cognizant of over the last couple of years is my transition from a founder to a CEO, but not losing the intensity and the mindset of what goes into a unique service that we're creating, which really requires that founder mentality. So I kind of say that as we listen, as we talk to the group, and who's ever listening on the recordings moving forward, someone can be a founder only, and then you want to have a CEO that works side by side with you to help you grow it. Or if someone doesn't have a creative thought about what's possible, it's more about this is what we can get done, then be the CEO. Or maybe you're a combination of both. But I think the sooner people realize it about themselves, the easier the journey may be. And like I said, I've been up and down on this for years, trying to figure out where my strengths lie and what I can do and how I can bring people around me to help us scale and grow. But that's just like the starting point of this talk. It's really a good distinguisher around the founder and CEO.
I think that I appreciate that. I think that really is a good distinction because, yes, founders with that creativity may not be the person that can run those day-to-day, operations, and it just doesn't work out well. And I'm sure we could go into uncountable amounts of examples of where that is. Kind of just stemming off of that, in your experience so far, do you feel like those go hand in hand well, or is that fully kind of depending on the personality type? Because it feels like, if you were more that founder and had to bring in that outside CEO or bring in somebody, maybe not outside per se in quotes, but somebody other than yourself, uh, that's obviously letting go of some things, which can be really hard. Um, kind of any, thoughts on that is,
No, I have a couple thoughts.
yeah, go ahead.
Number one, to really scale something, it's hard to do it by yourself. So I've had the philosophy literally since day one, and I do think it's contributed to my athletic training background because we are always working together. We're kind of behind the scenes as a professional supporting the team. We're not in the limelight. We don't get all the accolades. and I've said this to my team for a couple years, I, Adam, would rather have a piece of something than 100% of nothing. So when you talk about the personality, it literally is about the person who's making the decisions. I've actually talked with a lot of athletic trainers that don't want to collaborate. They don't want to work together with someone else because they want to be at the top of their own ivory tower. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. So it really just depends on what the individual wants to do, what they think they're able to accomplish, and how do they want to bring other people into the success, or do they want to be the success? So same thing that you're asking, it really just it goes down to the person. And are they willing to work with others? Do they want to work with others? Do they want to do something that is bigger than themselves, but it's almost too big of a mountain to climb by themselves? And that's what I'm doing. Like, it's not the Adam show. It's way too big. The opportunity is too large. And I know where my strengths lie. So, right, it's that old adage of a jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like, I can't do everything. And I've personally gone through the challenge of like starting this company from less than a napkin idea, and now we're making some traction. But I also want to be identified as a father, a husband, engaged with my family. And if I'm
Mhm.
just all in and I'm trying to do everything, something will suffer. So in order for that balance in my life to exist, I needed to have other people focus on marketing, focus on sales, focus on the service delivery, focus on the technology advancement. So it just goes down to the person, to your question. But the more people you have, and if you're creating a team environment, it can be really successful.
Appreciate that. Kind of starting all the way back from the founder side of it, creating, developing, and then implementing a vision. I'm sure most people listening have had multiple ideas along the course of time in athletic training, that they've wanted to implement. It just hasn't gone somewhere. I always wonder why we didn't have retractable cords on the Easton machines so they weren't just flopping around everywhere. But obviously, I haven't gone in on that because I don't know if they even exist. But what is what lessons have you learned, or just the experience that you've had on, kind of identifying, like you said, the problem and then figuring out a creative solution, and then actually going on the process of getting that to a point, whether we're talking about Wave on Health or previous ones, of now it's becoming a thing and really going kind of all in on it, if you will.
No, yeah, I understand the question. I think it really it's the attribute of being an athlete. And it's always easy to reference athletics with the world of athletic training because a lot of us were athletes at one
Mhm.
point. And it's not just because we got injured in high school and we wanted to become an athletic trainer, like we like being around sports, but also the mentality of it's a grind. We know that we have to practice all year and really push ourselves during the season to possibly win the postseason. So the big thing that I contribute I'll say success, and I'm not even successful yet, but the reason the company is this far, I just have that athletic grit that I don't give up. And I don't let anyone else tell me otherwise. I can't even count how many people have told me, why are you doing this? You're not making any money. It's never going to happen. Just go get a regular job. So you have to be that athlete and just block out the white noise and then focus on, well, what is important to me? And let's prove the naysayers wrong, right? Which once again is just that's how championships are made, right? That's how winning teams are created. They don't listen to anyone else. They focus on themselves. And we've done a great job building a team environment that everyone believes the same thing. But it really goes down to the personality and understanding. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? Like everybody would do it. But that's not the world we live in. It's much easier to get a job. In our case, it's much easier to get a job at a university, college, high school, and complain a lot about what everyone else should do than to go actually create the world we want for ourselves. But I would much rather put my head at night knowing I'm trying my hardest to do something that's never been done before than to be complaining and whining about my bosses, right? At least I'm putting my foot forward. And
Sure.
then there's always the secondary conversation, family, finances, all of that is definitely part of the discussion. So some people have it as a side hustle until it scales and it replaces their main financial income. So it just depends on everyone's situation is a little bit different.
Going back to something you kind of mentioned about people that doubt it, or tell you, why are you doing this? I read a quote the other day, is it's not so much focusing on the people that tell you that you can't, or that aren't interested, and more so on the ones that are. How have you gone about, like you said, blocking out the naysayers, or truly focusing on the people that are like, hey, could actually be a solution, or I really like the idea, and balancing that, especially people that say, do you just tune it out completely, or do you try and find kernels of like, that's interesting criticism, we maybe need to address that
Yep.
to ultimately make things better moving forward.
Um, Kind of an analogy I have
Sure.
is, and I say this when we talk about like getting new clients. In sales, you're batting 300, you're in the Hall of Fame, which means that you're going to get 7 no's before you get a yes. So once again, if we put that athletic mindset on, there's no way everyone's going to love it. We can't please everyone. And there's going to be a lot of people that are trying to battle us and knock us down. But for every 7 no's, there's going to be 1 yes. And that's what keeps the momentum going forward and the passion alive. And every conversation that I have, even when they're saying no, there's something that I can take from it to then refine the message to improve it. And that is that driving force that keeps us going forward. So for some people, if they don't like no's, and I've been an athletic trainer for 20 years, I've talked to thousands of athletic trainers. The profession of athletic training doesn't like the word no. It's just the way it is. We are built on a profession of, we're here to help you, and we're not going to say anything until you need us, and then we're going to be the expert. That when we are told no, we kind of freak out, because that's just not what we learned throughout school. It's not a sales profession. It's not an entrepreneur profession, a finance profession. So I've had to put on a different like set of lenses and a different hat all the time to understand how that feedback is going to help us move forward and get outside of the clinical mindset and get in the business mindset.
Other trials and tribulations, you at least on your couple experiences with this founder, CEO, entrepreneurship realm, other than naysayers, that have been common, or that you have seen from talking to other people, that you've had to work through, or that you've seen other people work through?
The biggest one for me is actually, and it goes back to the knowledge and the understanding of who I am. I'm a subject matter founder expert, or subject matter expert founder, sorry, which means like I know the world of athletic training in and out. I know athletics in and out. I know the problems before people even present them or
Sure.
create a solution. What I'm not is a technical founder. So in the world of business, you have to have technology that allows it to scale and grow. Well, that's not my expertise. I don't know how to build that stuff. So what we have been trying to do is build a company without the appropriate resources. And a real quick example is we were trying to do 2 guys in a pitch to go raise money, but we're creating an industry that doesn't exist and no one knows about it. So it's been that challenge of, how do we continue to grow without funding? The only way we grow is I'm a passionate leader, and people realize what I'm talking about is the opportunity for all of us to succeed. And now we have some of the development team, which then strengthens our investment story, which strengthens our client acquisition story. So the first one was understanding that I'm not a developer, and then how do we get funding? Like that's our current limitation, is how do we have funding to scale and grow
Sure.
appropriately? Mhm.
That jumped into one of the questions kind of towards the end, or just getting more
Mm.
What is, again, from all your experiences, and this is where funding to me just seems like this daunting, holy crap
Yeah.
scenario of trying to go, especially on the scale that you guys are talking. The crowdsource funding was big for a while. We've tried to do a few small scale things to not much avail, and a couple things I've tried to do
Mhm.
for funding. If you don't mind just kind of even talking about, again, previous experience where you're almost gone from a very small budget or just kind of basically doing it as you go versus now, like you had mentioned, figuring out those higher levels of funding to really make a splash and be able to move forward.
Um, there's a lot of different ways that I can answer this question. I will start with it's understanding my limitations. So I don't have a background in finance. I don't have an MBA. Once again, I have a really good idea because I'm the subject matter expert. So I could spend countless hours building out financial projections. And if I didn't have the family, that would be possible. But
Sure.
like I said, it's all about balance. So one of the things I've been able to do is find the appropriate support to help understand the business model and how much money we need to raise and how it goes into different milestones and what we can do now and what we can do next. So that's been really beneficial. Finding money is challenging. Now, I know athletic trainers all know athletes, and sometimes there's really good relationships that you can pick up the phone, and sometimes there's not that strong relationship with athletes that have a bunch of money. And if you look in the world of funding, it starts with your friends and family. I wish I had a wealthy uncle that is going to give me $5 million, but I don't. Right. So then it's just navigating that friends and family. We've raised a little bit, but now we have to get to the next round. And it is a job in its own right. Like raising money is harder than sales because you're trying to raise money on a passion and what's their ROI. At least sales, it's like, okay, what do I get for paying for
Sure.
this service or paying for this product? And I think that's now my biggest kind of learning curve and day-to-day task is let me dive all into funding because we have some other team members that have joined in the last couple months that take over a lot of the responsibilities from staff management or product development or sales and all the leads that we're getting in the door that I can use all of those data points to build the story for funding. And that's the craziest thing about funding. It's all about a story
Right.
and I'm part of the story and the team is part of the story and what's the ROI opportunity, what's the market, et cetera, et cetera. So it's its own beast. And I'm not a funding expert, like I'm going through it, but there's people that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars and they're a funding expert because they have that Rolodex, or people have been building pitch decks for companies for countless years. They're experts. I'm like that JV football player. It's like, okay, I'm thrown into the game. Let's go. Right. I'll figure
Sure.
it out
Sure.
as I'm in the game. No.
Just at least point me in the right direction and I'll see what I can figure out along the way.
Exactly. Exactly.
You brought up the team and just expanding it and making it bigger, and I feel like this definitely kind of falls in that CEO role,
Mhm.
especially early on. I think you've outlined why you've needed a team and why you've wanted to build the team for your own balance of being, wanting to be obviously the business, but everything else in your life, the expertise that comes along with building a team. But then also kind of talking about just like you're doing funding on an idea and everything that's really coming to fruition. As much detail as you want to share, obviously. How have you gone about building that team and getting those people interested? And I
Mm.
think Gary Vaynerchuk has said this a lot about, he never expects his employees to be as passionate as he is because it's his business. Like they shouldn't be, or they could be, but he doesn't expect that because why would he? Because it's
Mhm.
his thing. They might just be in there because yeah, they believe in it, but they're also collecting a paycheck and a job and everything like that. Um, so how have you gone about, building that team, finding people that are motivated? Maybe they aren't getting paid, maybe they are, whatever, again, you wanna share, but how have you gone about doing that and decided and in any more detail about how big the team, or all those different areas?
I mean, it starts with real, authentic leadership. And that is where the team has come from. When they talk to me and they hear my background, they hear the vision, and then they hear how big of an opportunity there is. They're like, yeah, no one's doing it. Let's all be part of it. And then when we talk about how to get them involved in an early stage company, if you don't have money to pay people, you kind of ask yourself, well, what can I give them to help me? And that comes in the form of equity. So they're sweat equity, right? So they're getting equity, and then as we get funding, they'll get paid. But they're understanding that it's a risk reward game, that they can give a little bit of time. There's a little bit of risk, but if we make it work, the reward is tremendous. And there's a lot of companies that start that way.
Sure.
Right. Not in the athletic training space, because athletic training is just a different industry. But if you look at all the technology companies,
Right.
they start with a bunch of grad school students sitting around a table, starting it, and then now they have, $200 million exit because they were part of that early stage. So that's really how we've got the team, and there's like 10 all over the country with technology expertise, sales expertise, obviously athletic training expertise, technology management expertise. So we've built out a really good team of people that are ready to rock and roll. And part of the reason we need funding is so they can stop working other jobs and
Right.
then we focus on this. So it's kind of to decrease or increase their bandwidth for us, but to decrease their bandwidth with other jobs they're doing.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Kind of the last question I had, we talked a little bit about it on our last episode, but you know, when to you kind of know to go all in on an idea from this founder
Mhm.
CEO realm versus potentially in a previous venture, knowing that maybe it's time to slow it down, shut it down, pivot, however
Yeah.
the person may look at it. Is it, from your experience, are there any signs or things that you kind of went through that you were like, hey, this is something we got to take and run, versus, hey, maybe this is not what we had hoped it was going to be. We see that it's time to now pivot and look at something else.
Yeah, I mean, I've already pivoted 3 times. So pivoting is not a bad term. Pivoting means you're just getting more focused on what can be successful. So you're kind of refining and simplifying what you're doing. In the past, I realized like this is just not worth it. There's no real end game in the near future. Let's stop and then we'll do something else. But with Wave on Health, every day I have conversations that make me want to go further. Like we just
Sure.
talked with an insurance carrier who has colleges that are all facing the problem that we're solving. They can't hire athletic trainers. And it's like, okay, we're on the right path. It doesn't mean it's going to happen this afternoon, but we see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? If anyone hikes, it's like, okay, there's 1 mile left on the trailhead, right? Or the trail. We're almost there. And those are the things that keep me going. And I think I mentioned it last time. I'm fortunate with my personal financial situation that I don't have to have another job. And those are all the things that everyone needs to contribute to. But at the same time, I've had multiple conversations with accelerators, not as much the investors, but the accelerators are echoing what investors are saying, which is if the founder is not all in, we can't invest in them
Right.
because the person that's at the top isn't all in yet. Why would we give them money and they only give us 20 hours a week? So that was one of the reasons why I jumped in early. I had the personal situation that allowed me to, but I knew for the team and then our scalability, I had to be all in. And nothing has made us turn around and go backwards. We trip over boulders, we slip on the dirt, but we're still going up the hill, which is all we can ask for. We're making big strides. And some days there's big leaps. We run a mile instead of walk 100 yards. Like there's big things that are happening for us right now.
I'm glad to hear that. Happy for you.
No,
Um,
thanks.
anything else around the founder CEO that you would, want to wisdom, lessons learned, pitfalls to avoid that
Yeah.
you'd want to impart on to anybody that's listening to this?
If you, not you, but the listeners, if you're gonna do it, you need to be all in. And that means when you wake up at 2 in the morning, it's part of it. You can't complain about it. You can't say someone needs to do something for me. You just got to say, okay, I woke up. What am I stressed about? How do I get an answer? How do I simplify it? And really look at yourself as kind of the North Star. And then everything will fall in line after that. But be ready for it to be hard. Like, this isn't easy, especially if you're starting something from scratch and there's no roadmap, or if you're going to do something that is more common, like starting an athletic training or business. It's not going to be 100 customers day one paying you all the money you want. Like, you have to put in the time to grow it. And if you feel that's not right for you, then don't do it. Don't put yourself through the stress. And that goes back to how we started the conversation with that grit. You have to know how much fortitude you have. You have to know how much willpower you have. It is really easy to get a job. It's really hard to create a job for yourself. And no one can make that decision but yourself. So if anyone wants to do it, I commend you, because I'm doing it, obviously. And I think the other thing is, it's finding a support group. If you talk with other athletic trainers and they just have jobs and you're starting your own thing, it's apples and oranges. It's oil and vinegar. It doesn't make any sense to each other. So really find that support group that can help you advance your career, and you can help that other person advance your career. And it might be someone that's not an athletic trainer, right? It might be a baker that opened a new bakery, and you're able to support them and they're able to support you.
Appreciate those words of wisdom. Just to kind of wrap up, if people wanted to connect with you, follow you, see what you're up to, where's the best place for them to do that? And we'll link all that up in the episode notes.
Yeah, you can find me. I'm really active on LinkedIn. I think that's the most professional environment to share articles. So just Adam Halpern, you can find me. And then adam@waveonhealth.com is the email. Waveonhealth.com is the website. But I love talking to athletic trainers. We have a referral program right now. We have athletic trainers that are coming on to deliver our service. So if anything I ever say resonates with you, reach out. I want to build a network. I want to help the profession of athletic trainer advance and excel into the next century. And we're building it, but I need to have athletic trainers that are on board with me. So let's talk.
Awesome. Well, appreciate your time again. Look forward to the next one. Just for a little teaser, kind of business basics and marketing, which, as much as I feel like I pretend to know marketing, my wife, who does it, tells me I'm an idiot, and I think she's right. So I'm excited to hear more what you've learned in your process. But thank you again, and we'll catch you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joel. See ya.
I hope you got something interesting out of this episode. I really enjoy these follow-up episodes because it takes something that someone within the AT profession is doing, plus these much broader concepts around being a founder CEO and a few other things that we'll talk about in follow-up episodes, and really is applying them to solving problems associated with the athletic training profession. Hope you learned something from it, can apply some different things, and really can go ahead and do that to maybe a project or an idea that you have. So hope you enjoyed this one. We'll have a couple more follow-ups of this coming along, and with that, we will catch you all next episode.